Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come full circle. The day's blasted past, hasn't it? It's been a full 90 minutes of dialogue. Now, to wrap up, I'd very much like to invite back on the stage. I've seen him taking notes furiously for the past hour and a half, and he's going to summarise for us, I hope. The Honourable Barry Gardiner, welcome back. Right, let's start off with your key highlights, please.
Gosh.
What are your thoughts? What you've heard?
I've scribbled so much down here, and I've circled lots of things that kept on coming up. Mission life. How many speakers mentioned mission life? The fact that, yes, governments have a job to do here. And we heard very clearly from business when we had the triumvirate at the end, talking about the importance of government helping business get that financing sorted out, getting the right regulatory framework in place. They talked about procurement policy, all of those things, really important. But this mission life kept on coming back as we also have to take individual responsibility. We have to understand that this is, yes, it's about transforming the way that we live. And we need urgent transformative change at a global level, but that is not just what government does, and government won't be able to do it unless it has that permission of the public that comes from the public being educated and taking this on themselves. And education was another theme that kept coming back through. Honourable Minister Hedda made that point very clearly about the importance of education for the next generation. Samir said the same when he was talking about it. And he talked about it in terms of young people and then brought it back to mission life again. So these were themes that ran through the discussion. I think, lots of people have spoken about the scale and the impact of climate change in the discussion this afternoon. The way in which it undermines not just global security, but countries are facing a huge number of individual risks. We talked about the floods, we talked about the droughts, we talked about all of that. But businesses are suffering huge supply chain disruption. They have a real problem in terms of stranded assets. You invest in a coal-fired power station now, you're struggling. And actually, here in India, we've seen that, haven't we, Minister? Because I think the projection was for 25 gigawatt of capacity to come on stream by 2030. There was 32 gigawatt of capacity that was already going to be in place, put in place back in 2016. But the financing is not coming through from it. Why is it not? Because investors say, hey, you know what? This is a risk. There's a risk that I'm going to be ending up with a stranded asset because in 10, 15 years' time, the policies may have moved so far from government to say, we're no longer doing this. We're off coal now. So there are real structural problems, and what business needs is certainty. Business can't operate unless it has clarity about what the framework in which it's going to operate is going to be. And I think that is something that governments need to take on board, and businesses need to increasingly make that clear to governments. We want to know not just what the targets are and the deliverables are in 10, 15 years' time. We want to know in 5 years' time. We want to be able to plan ahead with clarity and then deliver what you tell us. Business will operate in any environment as long as it's clear, structured, and government isn't going to shift the goalposts. One of the other things that came out, I thought, very clearly was when Samir talked about the Green Building Council survey. I thought that was really interesting that, here we're talking about doing something yeah, we may be doing it because this is going to be good for climate change. But actually, it's good for people's health.
Mm-hmm.
It lowers your running costs as a business if you build it correctly in the first place as a green building. You don't have the same running costs as a business. But more than that, your people are happier and their productivity goes up. I mean, what's not to like about that?
Exactly.
You know, it really, and that's how, again, we have to look at this holistically. That's where it really does make sense to have it as a green business. Considering water and air, Samir spoke about, they've always been regarded as free. Externalities. Externalities are the big bugbear here. Anything that the economist doesn't factor into the baseline, oh, well, you know, we can pollute. That waste is an externality. We don't need to worry about that. No, somebody pays the cost of that. And bringing those externalities into the financial equation, into the business equation, it is really critical.
We are running out of
I
time.
know we are.
I
know we are. Can I just
can,
very
you may,
quickly
you may. I'm gonna
pick
let
up
you go for
a
it.
couple of things? Look, I think it was a real shame that we didn't get more from Kunde on the situation in Africa, because I know that the bulk of the loss and damage that has already occurred in the world as a result of climate change is in Africa. They have been the worst affected. And they contribute less than 4% of global emissions. That's their continent. That's not one country. That's their continent.
Wow.
So it's totally unfair. And that's why the discussion we had about loss and damage is important. You asked Rudra about that. And Rudra gave you a really snotty answer, didn't you,
like
Rudra?
that at all, did you?
You said, when do countries ever cooperate? What has Pakistan got for its floods? Actually, India has given 18,154 crore to international development this last year.
Yeah.
That's $2.25 billion US. And they did contribute to Pakistan's floods. So, you know, well done, India. Well done, India. The Global Fund. No, you're absolutely right. And actually, I think that was where Laura's original question to me about the 30 by 30 by 30 was heading.
Yeah.
What is 100 billion? The best speech at COP26 was by Mia Mottley. And she stood up at the beginning, the Prime Minister of Bermuda, and she said, "You have not been able to deliver on your promise of 100 billion. You tell us there isn't the money. Really? Over the past 10 years, you have created $18 trillion of quantitative easing in order to get yourselves out of the problems of the global financial crisis and the pandemic. Don't tell us there's not enough money. You can produce it when you want, 18 trillion of it you did, and you can't bring us a poxy 100 billion a year. It's not on. Finance is at the core of this. We have to sort it out. It's an equitable problem. It's about fairness. It's about justice. And I want to finish with the final words that I think Sumit said. It's all of our responsibility. Thank you.
What a fantastic wrap up. I can't thank you enough. You've nailed everything. Absolutely fantastic. Sadly, as I mentioned, our time is up, but it really has been fantastic to have you here and to hear your expertise and to summarize so brilliantly as well. So thank you so much.
Great pleasure.
Let's hear it once again for the Honourable Barry Gardiner. Thank you. Thank you so much.